All right, so our last program for the symposium today is on nonprofit work and community organizing. Our presenter, Eddie Carmona, was nice enough to fly up from LA for us today to be a part of the symposium. Originally from the city of La Puente in Southern California, Eddie attended Sacramento City College from 2000 to 2003, and then transferred to UC Davis in 2003. While at Davis, he was an active member of the Chicana community, organizing marches and participating in various student movements. He also served as a community intern for the CCC, the Cross Cultural Center, by creating awareness of social justice issues affecting underserved communities in the area. In 2005, he graduated with a BA in Chicano Studies with an emphasis on social policy, and a BA in Communications, and was one of two recipients of the Chicano Latino Community Service Award. Over the past 3 years, Eddie has been a community organizer with the Orange County Congregation Community Organization, a PICO affiliate in Southern California, whose mission is to empower people to act on their faith. As an organizer, Eddie has trained and developed grassroots leaders to address and create policy changes in the areas of education, affordable housing, immigration, community development, public safety, children's health, and voter development. Through PICO, he works with diverse communities throughout the United States on both local and national issues. His passion for his work fuels his vision for the transformation of marginalized populations into respected communities actively engaged in their political processes. So without further ado, please help me in welcoming Eddie Carmona.
All right, so I'm going to stand up because I like being interactive with the audience. This is new to me, so I'm used to being on your end. I just graduated 3 years ago, so. Just as Alfredo says, brief introduction. First of all, thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure for me to be here and sitting here and talk to you guys and the work that we do in PICO and community organizing. So a real brief introduction about PICO and kind of the community organizing, grassroots community organizing throughout this country, probably from the 70s till now. So the PICO National Network started with two Jesuit priests who went to Chicago, who studied under a gentleman named Saul Alinsky. Saul Alinsky was a gentleman who was working on community organizing. It was a really kind of in-your-face person that wanted to create change and go up against the systems that were currently in place, that were creating all the injustices and inequalities in the late 60s, early 70s. From that, these two Jesuit priests came through under his tutelage, came back to California, and started neighborhood organizing in no other place other than Oakland, up in Oakland in the late 80s. They started out with the Oakland Training Institute, which was really focused on doing neighborhood organizing. So neighborhood organizing started there. They kind of took Saul Alinsky's model and went at it and figured out how to do this whole community organizing thing. What they saw happening was that, in essence, what was happening throughout that time was that the government was creating situations that was breaking up communities, be that gentrification or be that different systems in different areas where they were, just communities weren't able to stay intact. So they were having a real struggle trying to figure out, well, how do we get to people? How do we get to the same people? People were moving around, and there was no continuity in the organizing. So they said, well, what are some of the places that we can go? Some of the institutions that are never going to be moved and never going to change. They realized that congregations in those communities were the ones that had access to a lot of people in the community, and where people were still coming. Even if they were moved out of the community, they were still coming all the way from other cities and other areas. So it was continuous, that kind of flow of people and the access to people. So myself, just to kind of give you a little brief, when I first went into community organizing and I said faith-based organizing, I was a Chicano Studies major myself, and I was all about, let's go, let's do marches and stuff like that. I was like, I don't know if that's the way that I want to go, right? But learning and figuring out different strategies and different ways of doing it and really developing people is what we do in community organizing. So that's just a real quick introduction about PICO. Now, who is PICO? We started off in Oakland, the Oakland Training Institute. We are now in 18 states in the United States, over 150 cities, representing over 1 million families. That being said, just in the last 3 to 4 years, we've also expanded internationally. We are now in Rwanda, and we are actually in Central and South America. So these efforts we've been around since 1973, and now we've shown every decade an exponential growth in the United States and abroad. So our main focus, what do we do? What do we do in Pico? 3 cornerstones that mark us and which separate us, what I'm going to argue, which separate, oh, I'm sorry. Question? Yeah.
Is there significance behind the name Pico?
Yeah.
What it stands for?
It used to stand for the Pacific Institute of Community Organizing, which made sense back when we were just in California. So now we kind of let that one go because we are national and international, and now we just use the acronym PICO. So what separates us, I think, from a lot of the community organizing networks, other networks such as Acorn, even another organization called DART, and there's a bunch out there, right, throughout the United States. The cornerstone that marks us and what we do is that we utilize self-interest of people. We focus on power. And we really focus, if I had to say the one thing that we do most importantly is relationships. Now, one of our guiding principles that we go by is that organizing is about people. People are about issues. Now, what does that mean? What does that translate to is that we focus on the individual and creating community leaders from the grassroots perspective. And from that development of that community member, that's how we determine what issues we're going to work on. A lot of grassroots organizations do it the other way. They say we're going to focus on this issue, and then we're going to go out and find who it is that can support our movement or can support what it is that we're doing. So when you focus on the individual, it creates a situation that people feel important. And people say, wow, this person actually cares about what I'm doing. So let's take, for example, let me just ask somebody in this room. Mary, what's important to you?
Family.
Family. Somebody else, what's important to you?
My friends.
Your friends. Somebody over here?
Education.
Education, right? So this is what we tap into in people. We tap into their core values and what's important to them as a person. A lot of times we're told in community organizing, sacrifice. That's what I used to do. Sacrifice. What you care about is not important. You got to sacrifice yourself for the greater cause, right? That's what I used to do. That's how I used to do that every day here, right? Who cares about me and my health and everything like that? But let's just go out there and do the work. While I kind of learned the opposite when I got into community organizing. When people were asking me, how are you doing and what's important to you? I was like, whoa, I thought that never really mattered, right? But it does, because another principle that guides us is self-interest motivates people. Self-interest moves people. If you're working on something that I'm interested in, that I have a personal interest in, say maybe it's education, and I'm a teacher, I'm more likely to join and want to change something and create some changes in my community because of that. So that's the self-interest, and then the relationship piece. We really value personal one-to-one relationships. And I'm not talking about a phone call. My job as a community organizer is to go out and have 20 what we call one-to-ones a week with community members. That means that I go to their house, and I meet with them and talk with them and maintain an ongoing relationship with them. So I'm not just calling them saying, hey, come on out to this event that we're having. It's going to be really cool. It's going to be really important. No, that's what a lot of people do. A lot of organizations use community members as, they treat them as utility agents. I gotta have a head count. I gotta have 500 people there. What do I gotta do to go turn them out? You know, that's what a lot of organizations do. So it's no wonder that when we have our community actions, we turn out 1,000 people. We turn out 5,000 people. And people wonder, what's the secret ingredient? What do you guys do? How do you guys get those turnout numbers? And really what it is through personal relationships. We spend very little on flyers. I mean, we do regular promotion and stuff like that, but a very little amount of our focus goes on to like really promoting stuff. We utilize the relationships that we have. And the other thing with the congregations, you have access to people. You have a lot of access to a lot of different people and a lot of different members in the community. So this is the way that we function. This is the way that we work as a nonprofit organization. What are some of the issues? I want to get into some examples. Okay, yeah, we develop people, we train people how to be community leaders, but what do we work on? So some of the issues that I've worked on, currently I'm an organizer for the city of Santana in Southern California in Orange County. One of the most difficult places, I have to say, to work. I didn't think any place would be more difficult to work than in Davis. Then I went to Orange County and I realized that, yeah, it is pretty hard. So working in Santana, we are fighting for kind of the most basic kind of things that you would want in a community if you were a resident of a community. Clear-cut example of this is I organized about 10 community members in the Delhi area of Santana to get the city of Santana to invest in infrastructure. And I'm talking about streets that were falling apart, that hadn't been worked on in over 50 years. So those streets had existed for that long without any maintenance on them. We actually were able to get the city of Santana to invest over $100 million into repaving the streets. Were they gonna do it? Yeah, probably eventually, 10, 15 years from now when it was convenient to them, because these were local streets, right? What we had to do is we had to light the fire and push them a little bit harder to move on that action. So that's a real basic issue that we work with, kind of just infrastructure right there. On a larger scale, we've helped remove slumlords from communities. In the city of Fullerton, one of our organizers there has just recently got the city of Fullerton to do what they call a receivership, which means that there was a slumlord who owned the property. There was literally raw sewage in the apartments, toilets overflowing, roaches, different things like that existed in that apartment. After a 2 to 3 year battle, we finally got the city of Fullerton to sue this guy, to sue the owner, and not only sue him, but remove him from the property and take over that apartment complex. And now this guy is stuck in court. This is a guy who owns a number of properties in Orange County and now is feeling the heat to kind of remove some of his other properties throughout other parts of the county. So who's pushing this? Is it me? It's not me. What I do is I meet with people, we assess. My job as an organizer is to be a teacher. I teach. I'm what you call a teacher of community organizing. Community members come up to me and they say, I want to do something about this in my community. What do I need to do? My job is to teach them, not to do it for them or to identify the issues for them. So that is really one of the main things that we do in community organizing. We're doing, one of the greatest stories that I would love to have been a part of is in Rwanda, what's happening over there. Community members were fighting for a hospital clinic in their community. No one wanted to do anything about it. So what did the community members do? They're building the hospital themselves in Rwanda. And they're using their own hands. They took this community members involved with PICO and are being taught how to go about the policy process to get funding for this, and they're doing it. It's one of the greatest, greatest accomplishments that I've heard in our organization is that people are actually moving and being able to be taught how to do things for themselves and not have us intellectuals or people who with their degrees go in there and say, this is what it is that you need in your community. That doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. It's not sustainable on the other end of that. We wanted to create a sustainable organization since our inception in Oakland. The way to do that is to let people identify the issues themselves. One of the other good stories that I had is the city of Santa Ana right now is currently trying to redevelop and really gentrify a community in that area. They're trying to bring in all this high dollar development and push all the Latinos out of that area. So what I did with my community members is I didn't know anything about development and urban planning. So I said, let's go and learn about it. Let's go do it. And we did it together. We both went on that journey together. And when I'm talking about these folks, I'm not talking about a college graduate, not even a high school graduate. I'm talking about folks who maybe graduated from middle school in their countries of origin, folks that some of them may not have even gone to high school, that have been working their whole lives, but they're out there, they're learning how to zone an area. What we're doing right now as an organization for the city so that they can implement that plan instead of the plan that they wanted that did not include any community concerns whatsoever. So we're really talking about sitting down and saying, what's your name? Christian, saying, Christian, I know you don't have an education. I know you didn't go to school up into high school. You dropped out in middle school. But you know what? We can do this because you have a voice and you're a community member. You have the right to say what it is that you want in your community. And if you're down, I'm going to teach you how to do it. And that's what we do. That's exactly what we do. And we walk with people along that journey. Now, when we have our community action with our public officials and everything like that, who do you think's in front of the camera and in front of everyone, the thousands of people? Is it me? No. My job is to be the director. I'm back there where she's at, right? And my community members are up here in front. Because I prepared them and I taught them how to do what we're going to do, we run everything very efficiently, and they're going to be the ones speaking. Because who cares? I don't live in Santa Ana, right? Who cares if I'm up there speaking? You think the city council member, the mayor's going to have any concern about me getting up there and saying these different things? It's not going to happen. They care about the community members. So our job is to prepare them to the best of our ability. One of the most difficult things, I think, for me, transitioning from UC Davis to community organizing was the kind of intellectual thinking that we do here at the university, right? Now, education is important. It's great, and I'm glad that I came here, and I'm glad I got my bachelor's degree, right? One of the most difficult things for me was I went to these community members that had maybe a junior high education, and I was trying to explain things as if I was talking to other college students. And they looked at me, they were like, what are you talking about? I have no clue what you're talking about. I actually had to learn how to explain an important concept like community development by drawing pictures and by using a lot of images in my trainings. So it wasn't even, I didn't find out till maybe 6 or 8 months into the job that some of my community members could not read. And I didn't know that. My assumption was that I was dealing with folks who were literate and who knew what it was that was going on. And that was my fault, you know. I didn't bother to think about it, but that's where I was coming from. I was coming from a university setting. I was coming from student organizing and doing different things like that. So once you have to figure out, that's probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. How do I take a concept as difficult as immigration policy, as difficult as getting out the vote and proposition education, and translate it into a language that community members with a very low level of education are going to understand?